light for
Yo
any
guys,
trio
make
to
sure
kind
you
of
guys
jump
turn
on
on
down.
this video
And just
for
looking at it
like
right here, it's like once you kind of leave your main power POI, the question is, where are we going to find a replenishment? And considering right now there's literally zero or minimal opportunities to kind of farm up, you're going to have to get it from another trio. And when you're in shambles like Benji and Savage are, that's going to be so difficult. Yes, they get a little brief refresher. They find their little moment of oasis, but that could be soon a mirage going forward for the rest of the ride here in this opening game in day 2. This is the grand finals. This is the FNCS Trios. At the end of the day, we will crown an FNCS Trios champion, and that's going to be awesome. And they're going to collect 100 acts of champions and gain the ultimate respect of being a champion.
And are currently on board here. They were 5th coming into the day. Solari, Floki, and then Rams Clement and Nako's, the French trio, being absurdly consistent during their heats and having a good start to the day yesterday, but 2 really waffling games there. Games 3 and 4 made it tough and kind of allowed for the top of the leaderboard to separate themselves out a bit. Now, one thing about this trio in particular is they're a little bit more aggressive on average than any other trio in EU. They generally will pick up their first eliminations around 8.5 minutes in, which is more so than a lot of the other teams. So despite being uncontested, they're more than comfortable to go out and not only get tags, but look for confirmations. And one thing I want to note, we went from 91 players to 66 players in that nice little spurt there. So the Storm Surge driving plenty of action and plenty of points being doled out, but it's all in the form of those eliminations because the placement points won't come through until we have our top 17 trios.
It's the same thing that we saw in A East in their day 1, which was just a fantastic cast covered by Ozzy Antics and Monster D-Face. All those players in the NA East region were playing so tight to the chest. They were making sure that every build mattered and every peak mattered, every edit mattered, and we were seeing those crazy Storm Surge, or I remember like 5 minutes will pass and everybody will still be alive and up and running. As we've seen in the feed, Analyx gets a confirmation on Vettel, so Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6 are out. Benji is still cooking up right there, going against Carrot, a new star that kind of prop up on the scene in the FNCS Invitational as the coolest Carrot. But hey, I don't know how long you could be cool, man. It's time to heat up, man. I don't know what you got to do if you're the coolest Carrot, but now it's time to heat it up, because right now the action is heated up as we can get a nice overview of Thomas HD and that trio who had a decent start. They pulled zone, and I really believe, and I'll get into it if we have an opportunity, I really believe that shift in that landing from retail, from Dirty Docks to retail rope, is really affecting that Thomas HD trio.
Yeah, it makes it a little tough to be able to get out when you're used to a certain circumstance, but you can see utility being used as players will jockey position here on the 4th zone, and positioning in this zone is so important because the change for the next zone, the 5th zone, will then be our half in, half out. What that means is the new safe area will kind of cut around the outside, so players, rather than heading central like you want to for the first 3 zones, will now crowd around the outside for the hopes of pulling that half in, half out 5th zone, so then they'll get priority on the moving zones that happen afterwards. So zone 6 through 9 will completely leave the safe area for the new zone, and that causes everyone to be forced to rotate, and that's where high ground ends up being so important.
Here is our wild card trio who were able to get into with a very intense, super hype. All the metaphors in the world will not explain how intense that situation is. It is Rojo's trio, and they're doing really well here in the grand final stage, sitting at 10th place, and they pick up a big knock on Hen. And Hen, Puchik, and Deceptos were one of those trios that were a lot of people were picking as a dark horse. So this is going to be a big impact elimination, not only for Dave just on the leaderboard, but for Rojo's trio for just to have that confidence of knowing that they can compete. And that just what's really wild here about that the 33rd team can still walk away with the grand championship at the end of the day. Deceptos, Puchik, and Hen. And we all know, just like Mongrel's importance to that trio, Hen is super important to Deceptos and Puchik. And Puchik goes down.
Puchik goes down again. Smash Dave, again, you talked about it. Rojo, the World Cup duos runner up there with Wolfies, now representing Smash Esports. You can see SB Nate and then Bobo of Exalti as well. They came up clutch in the final moments yesterday, but now putting good pressure. And we talked about it. Hey, what's the difference between the 1st and the 33rd team in the finals? Well, they all get to play all 12 games, and it's a fresh slate once you get there. So All that matters is you got invited to the dance, and right now these guys have been very much so capitalizing on the opportunities and finding some great rifle shots. The angles here from these guys almost completely covered, and notice how they have the metal full belt cones above them, cutting down the angle on anybody else who might be or might even thinking about throwing shots towards them. So good effort there to convert into 4 points.
It's all about the acute angles right there. Everything matters. Every moment matters. Every knock matters. Every confirmation and elim matters. This is what the intensity is of Fortnite competitive play, especially on the grand final stage. And some people will be able to step up to that pressure, and they're going to be able to play outside of their minds, and we're all going to get hyped and say, what are you doing? What did you eat for breakfast? How are you doing this? Or some of them are just going to be able to fold. But that doesn't matter. I mean, you made it this far. You have an opportunity to build off of this, to build that confidence. And that is what's so amazing about this, is that if you think about the EU region entirety, it's probably one of the most dense regions in the Fortnite competitive scene.
Oh, it's absolutely the most tense. The most players competing, especially at the highest level when you're going through the most tournament participation. And you've seen time and time again that some of the plays that come out of this region and the gun skill and the level of mechanics are utterly ridiculous at times. Might not have the most discipline, but what does discipline matter when you can beat the person who's across from you 9 times out of 10? And right now you can see Clement and Floki Nakos were able to pick up an elimination onto Vidil and Fastroki's trio. So going to be able to snake away a point there and also avoid Storm Surge for that 5th zone threshold. It is 50 players, so we're right at that line. We are also at the line where placement points are about to begin to be doled out. So once we get into the top 17, every single trio that falls will then be 1 more point. Then once you're into the top 3, there's an additional 11 points on the line. 3rd gets +2, 2nd gets +4, and then the Victor Royale walks away with a big old +5 and whatever eliminations they can rack up at the end. And right now, we're seeing, again, good discipline here from the French trio, finding an angle, being able to put pressure. And they pulled priority on this zone here. You can see their bottom right-hand corner. They have the white line, and everyone else is going to have to pass them if they want to head to safety. And they're going to begin to try and head upwards a little bit. Nope, they open that up, and they see, never mind, somebody's directly above us. We're going to stay on this low ground.
And here we are going into full storm rotations now. 6, 7, 8 are going to be outside of the storm every time this trio gets into the safe zone. And then 9 is the ultimate closing zone. We'll go all the way down to the entire screen is filled purple. But Nakos gets a big knock on Yanis on the same layers there as they're going to make their full rotation. That is the power of having priority. You could kind of look back, and they get X-Squeeze as well. So they're going to trade out when Nakos is going to go down, pick up the quick heal. That's a great benefit as well, being on the front side of the storm. You have the time to res, and they're going to barely get that res off. And now we're going to take a look at the chaos. You're going to have the low ground form up. You're going to have the mid ground form up. And of course, who is at height is always the question that everybody wants to know, because they're going to have the power position here to walk away with the Victor Royale. Savage goes down, gets fully confirmed in the feed. All the names are going to start lighting up here for the moment here, Sundown.
Yeah, now we have our placement points beginning to get doled out, and they're going to come in very quickly. 2 already ticking over as we're into our top 15. 35 players remaining, but a good execution there coming through from Nakos and Co to get back to a strong 3. Now they're going to about face and start spraying shots. Andalix will also get confirmed by Blackie, so that's our second place team being taken down. We talked about Rojo and Co, but they will be no mo there as he gets taken out. However, Mongro, Tayson, Mitro, if the #1 team doesn't fall and gets high ground every game, this is going to be a race for second as they open up match number 6, just like they closed the rest of the day yesterday. Controlling high ground and raining down the AR shots with nary a contestant in sight. So we're going to hop on board here with the French trio, who's continuing to work on the low ground. 4 eliminations so far. Nakos has the legendary pump as well as the bandage cannon, so good opportunity to potentially execute here in the late game and make some plays.
CRR stealth Wolfies does get knocked, but it is an opportunity, though, for at least Clement, Floki, and Nakos to kind of close the gap as much as possible. Yes, already metaphorically as well. On top of the leaderboard is Mongrel, and on height is this game as Nakos does pick up an Elan right then and there. It's so important, though. We've been seeing the playstyle in the EU region to overcome height at a moment's notice. We've been seeing a lot of low ground victory royales. The question is can Mongrels hold on? And Kenzo is actually going for height. It's Cammy. 2 teams are competing from height. and it's going to be Tayson that's going to be left on alone. And you mentioned Mongrel going down. That is the ultimate closer for that trio. Mitro and Tayson are going to have to do it as Cammy and Raxo take control of height, as you see on your bottom right. On the top right, it's going to be the low ground. And Clement, and man, look at them. They're getting so many elims right now. Already with 7 Sundown.
And there's plenty more on the board. They're also getting the placement points ticking over. Top 4 with 9 players remain. But all of a sudden, Clement is all alone. He's going to turn around and pick up CRR. It's going to be a 1v3. He finds a second right away. That was Mitro for the full confirm, but he goes down in third. Raxo up on the high ground, running it out now, and the challenge comes up from Kinzo, and he gets swatted down. Raxo and Gamma Gaming Cammy will close that one out. 9 eliminations and 34 points from the Victory Royale. Match 6 closes out there.
In a blink of an eye, before you know it, a Victory Royale is accrued by Raxo and Co. We're going to need the breakdown from Zeke, Sayo, and Reese. What you got for us, fellas?
Well, we got Sancho is day 2. And we have even more day 2 teams. This is what we were talking about at the very beginning of this show. Cammy, Artur, I cannot believe they find themselves the Victory Royale. Just for clarity, they came in and ended day 1 in 14th place. And now they're going to start day number 2 with the Victory Royale and eliminations. I mean, this is exactly what we've been talking about. I'm so surprised, and gentlemen, we're going to break down kind of what went down a little bit more in just a little bit. But remember, we've got the standings. We have these cumulative leaderboards. You've still got Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. They're far and away, even after that game, I mean, 40 points ahead? I don't know how they're doing this.
It's like they didn't win that last game, but they did not lose it either. They got to survive all the way till the very end, and now they have an even bigger lead, Reese.
17-point match for them, really nice, and like obviously, like we've said, we need to keep this consistency
Ja,
up.
jullie
They're
zien de
already
score
coming in
hier en
strong
dit was
on the
het.
first game of day 2,
Hoop dat jullie het
consistent
leuk
as
vonden en
they
ik maak
were
er nog een andere
yesterday.
video
We
van
can see
voor
kind of
de
Handlex
volgende.
not managed to get that many points, only